All
right, we have some people coming in.
So I presume you all are going to start it, right?
Absolutely. No,
I don't have to.
Our plan is
Okay.
we're going to just throw you in the deep end of the pool, Maggie,
Right?
and say, yes,
Do it.
it's all you. Yeah.
Do it.
And the real key
I got
thing is
this.
to start is you got to stay real stern like this, like, yeah.
Mean. Because
Linda's
that's how
on.
you know how
Linda.
mean I am.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I won't stick my tongue out too much, but no, we have fun. That's what makes this.
Yeah.
That's what makes this fun with everybody.
I've enjoyed all the ones I've seen.
Yeah, it's cool. So really glad you're here and making time to do this. It's our fun lunch together, right? Except we can't eat. So yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, sort it out.
Cool.
All right, we've got some people coming in. Stacy Sacco joined us again.
Nice. Hi, Stacy. How are you?
Oh, look, my friend Terry Linton's on. Hello, Terry.
Wow, look at this.
So much fun.
Maggie, there are only like 3 other people, so you're good. Yeah.
Well, chill. It's just us. We're just chatting, right?
Yeah. Sean Berman's on. Hi, Linda. How are you? Sandy, thanks for making it. Pretty cool. Hey, Jocelyn's on too.
All right,
cool.
great.
Yeah.
Maggie, we won't tell you the number, but we'll keep announcing their names
Announcing all the names.
Yeah.
just to calm you down. It's a nice thing.
Well, at some point, if it's above 3, it kind of doesn't matter.
Good. Well,
It's all the same.
Yeah,
at
that's
that point,
the spirit. Yeah. Love it. Yes.
This is fun watching everybody join. Just give it a few more minutes, make sure everybody has a chance to get on. This is great.
Can you hear my dog panting?
No.
No, which one is it?
That's Gizmo.
Gizmo's there?
He has suddenly found lizards this year, which he's
Okay.
never done before. And now he spends hours outside just on the prowl looking for lizards, I think.
Really?
I'm presuming that's what he's looking for. I don't know. He's never done that before. He's always been sort of an indoor hang out with me kind of dog, but
Wow.
he's into
We got to
it.
get him and Poupon together because Poupon
That would
loves
be
hunting lizards.
Oh, see,
yeah.
they'd be besties.
Yeah, and he can't catch one, but he thinks
I don't
he's
think
the
he's
biggest
caught it. He
lizard
hasn't
hunter.
Brought me
No.
anything.
No,
It's good
but he
exercise.
loves it. It's very good exercise. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
very good idea. Yeah, we'll do that. We'll bring Poupon up and have him run loose. It'd be
That
fun.
would be perfect.
That would be cool. That'd be cool. And if you hear him
Go
barking,
take a hike.
I hope the UPS man doesn't show up because Poupon then gets very excited when all this is going on. So if you hear any barking, that's what it is.
We know you're getting a gift.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. So Tom, I'm going to kick us off with just some technical stuff real quick, and then I'll hand it over to you. Does that sound good?
Kayla, whatever you want. Thank you for all the hard work in making this happen. So yes, you do what you'd like to do.
Okay, sounds good. All right, well, welcome everybody. Thank you all so much for joining us. We're really excited to hear from Maggie today, some stories from the trenches of family business. So first thing we're gonna do is we are going to tell you about the Q&A box. So there is a Q&A box that you can put your questions into. If at any point during our conversation there's anything that comes up that you're curious about, please do that. You can use the chat box as well if there's anything you want to share with us as the panelists or with anybody else. So just know that that's available. Hi, Sandy. She just practiced in the chat box. Appreciate that. So those things you can find in the panel. The best view to use is the speaker view, and you can find that probably at the top right of your screen. Feel free to push some buttons. Worst case scenario, you get kicked out and we'll still be here when you get back in. So, all right, Tom, we will kick us off. Why don't you tell everybody a little bit more about Parker Center and then introduce our presenters today.
Absolutely, will do. So we've had this series, the Vision 2020 series, during this COVID crisis, and really want to be, which is Parker's mission, to be the premier resource for family business in the Southwest. And we continue with our Vision 2020 series today. to really provide information that family business users and owners, can use in this situation to help them move forward and plan and figure out how they survive, but also to thrive during this crisis. So I want to thank Kayla again for all your tremendous work in this. Robin Otten, our executive director, Linda Parker has been hugely supportive, and we've had a number of board members help us with this project as we pivot into this new world. So we've had 2 of these so far. I think they've been really interesting and a great success. We're shifting gears a little bit today. And so you have some panelists that you've obviously seen. We're having a roundtable discussion, but with a feature family business connector member. So a member of Parker Center who runs her family business, and that's Maggie Anderson. I'll introduce her in a minute, but you certainly know Dr. Edward Monte by this point. He has been on all of these presentations so far, and I think he has just done a tremendous job of talking about all the psychological aspects of this crisis and how family business has been affected. And then Kathy Wiseman, we're really glad to have her today. She's been working on a national level with family businesses, just like Dr. Monte. And in this crisis, she was on the first Vision 2020 presentation, and she's here with us today. And I think you're going to have some good input and questions for Maggie. So with that, our featured guest today, and I know she doesn't even want to know how many people are on this, so we told her there's only 5 people. And first off, Maggie, before I introduce you, I really want to thank you for taking the time to come and do this. I think this means a lot to us. You are a member of the Parker Center, as said, but your story and your experience in family business is really, I think, interesting. And what you've been going through over the last couple months, I think, can be of real help to our other members and people who are listening. So thank you for being here. I've known you a while. I want you in your own words really to describe your business and kind of the origin story, if you will, a little bit, because I'm gonna do a bad job if I do it. And then get into really what has been going on the last couple months in your situation as COVID started, because I think it's such a fascinating story. And then we will ask questions and interject. We'll try to do our best not to interrupt as things move on. Thank you so much for your time.
Absolutely, absolutely. I have, I'm 2nd generation of a family business. My father moved here in 1970 and developed a hotel in downtown Santa Fe, the Inn at Loretto. And we have some real estate interests, some land we're developing, things like that. But most of what we do, the day-to-day operations, is tourist related. We sold the hotel in the 90s, but kept the Loretto Chapel and some about 5,000 square feet of retail space and some property next to it that we're developing. And so I operate that, some like a line of these trams that takes tourists around town, mostly tourist-based businesses. So you can imagine that the COVID has really hit us hard, with all of that. But I think that for us, a lot of this it was timing that made COVID even harder for us than some. And our family is on the back side of that 2nd generation, takeover. My children are just old enough to where they're thinking about it. And there's 9 grandchildren in our family. And so that's my kids' generation. And they're all college age or high school type of age. So they're not quite ready to take over or join, but they're interested in it. So they pay attention to a lot of this. But my dad still comes to work every single day. He is in his mid-80s and he's my cashier. So he does all of the cash handling. He does all of the accounting. He does all of the kind of back of the house, the bank accounts, juggling things between companies, things like that. So I actually rely on him a lot. We are a pretty pragmatic family in terms of discussing death and succession and all of that. And we've worked really hard over the last 10 years, I think, to come up with succession plans and make sure that we have, everything in line, powers of attorney or access to bank accounts, knowing where things are. Having said that, even for us being really, I thought, pretty prepared, this kind of caught us off guard. You kind of realize that when it rains, it pours is really true sometimes. And so for us, all of this started in March, right? So in February, we start hearing that's the end of our dead season. And because we're cyclical, we start season with, I've been running the last 3 months basically negative. We drain the reserves, we keep everybody full time. I don't ever cut hours. We don't ever reduce anything for our employees. So by the time March rolls around, we are really ready to have the cash flow come in. So I spent February placing orders, getting ready for the season to come up. March started happening. We're hearing this word of China, and I got really worried about our supply chain because we have a really popular line of statuary, some different items that come out of China, and I was worried that we wouldn't be able to get it to finish the season. So I placed massive orders so I could get these supplies in hand for the rest of our season, not knowing that 2 weeks later we were going to be closed. So we ended up, as it got worse, we really were having these conversations with the employees. We talked a lot about people's comfort level. Did they want to stay open? Should we close? Who didn't feel comfortable being at work? They didn't have to come. We really tried to make it a team approach with everyone. We have a small staff, but a really dedicated staff. A lot of it, I'd say our average employee's been there probably 15 years, I'd say. And so we had a lot of those conversations. And so by the time we decided, okay, we need to close, that was about March 19th. So it was right before the governor's order would have closed us anyway. At that point, we received pallets of merchandise that just got put into the office, and we didn't even look at it again for months. And at the same night, literally, my dad was taken to the hospital. He'd had some spinal surgery in February. And so I was already stressed having to kind of pick up his job through February and March. And then he got out of the hospital for a couple of weeks, took a turn for the worse, and ended up back in the hospital unexpectedly at that point. So all of this happened the same day I had to close the business, let the employees go. He got taken to the hospital, and we weren't allowed to see him or talk to him for weeks. And that day were some of the only phone calls he was able to make. For a nurse helped him call each of his kids so he could say goodbye, type of a thing. And so it was, kind of a stressful time. And then, of course, he's completely, and he's fine now, but at that time, he had to go in for this emergency surgery. And so I now had to make all of these decisions entirely on my own. I had to pay these bills from all of this merchandise that I had purchased that I didn't know where the money was going to come from. We didn't have that much because I was counting on March's income. And I couldn't get in touch with him to find out, even though we planned it all and I knew in theory where things were, I never really had to access different bank accounts and transfer large amounts of money over to the operating account to just pay the credit card bill and pay payroll and make all those things happen. So we had a period of time where the first thing I did is call all the family members and say, no one's getting paid. I can't make payroll for the employees and pay our vendors, some of which are individuals sitting at home making rosaries. They need that income. They can't go without it. So I paid everybody who I thought had to be paid right away. The family some of them were shocked. They didn't expect this because it's always been so reliable. And I had one family member her husband was getting ready to retire, and he had to rescind his retirement for a little bit until we can figure out our end, because now they're going to have less income. So we went through, a lot of that, but everybody did what they had to do. They all pulled together. We got the employees, I helped everyone get on unemployment. So while we're juggling all this, we have to also become these unemployment experts that, I had no idea how to do that, but everybody stays, nobody files for unemployment. So now we're having to learn new skills, bring in and soothe the concerns of family members who don't know what to do or how they're going to do it. And it was a really tough time. I was so grateful that we had worked really hard in getting the estate plan in place. And the most important thing that we did, I think, is develop a team. And it was the team that my dad feels very comfortable with and that I feel very comfortable with. And that took us some time to put that together, because sometimes, you know, he loved his estate attorney that he'd used forever and ever, but I was getting to where I needed somebody else. But because we had all of these players in place and they were used to me speaking for my dad, or for us to having access, it was fabulous that, like, Tom, I could call you, or more importantly, you would call me and say, okay, what do you need? You were able to make transfers right away. When information started coming out about the SBA, I already had the people in place to say, okay, my financial advisor has given me this banker, or my CPA says this. Of course, we were all kind of flying blind at that time, you know, because the rules weren't out. We were just kind of guessing. But it was critical to already have those people there. And I wasn't scrambling, trying to find out, you know, because everything that you would read at that time on the SBA note said, you know, be sure to talk to your CPA. If I were trying to find a CPA at that time, that I would have been looking for the cliff. You know, it was just too much. So it was great to already have all of that in place. And I think that going forward, there's so many things that now, and then this time away has also forced me to look at things differently. Because now it's been, what, 2.5 months that we don't have regular work. We're just now talking about, what does opening look like for us? We're still closed. And so we're having regular meetings with our employees. What do they need? What can we do? Of course, we already have, you know, 100 yards of plexiglass everywhere and masks and, you know, all of that. But what really do we need? And now I need to think in terms of preparing family for the long term of, this isn't going to just go away. When the governor said April 10th, we thought, oh, May 1st at the worst, we'll be fine. It's going to be a great summer. Everyone's going to want to travel. And walking around downtown Santa Fe, I can tell you it's going to be August probably before it's even close to normal. Maybe July, I don't know. But at this stage, I'm now realizing I need to have more realistic expectations, and I have to prepare everyone in the family for that. It's also given me this 2.5 months off has given me personally a little bit of time to reflect in a way I never took the time to do before. Our family is such that I kind of am the everything, and I feel a great deal of responsibility for everyone. So when I do multiple jobs, probably too many jobs, and I work all the time. And part of that is in my head thinking, well, if I hired a bookkeeper or a purchaser or a accounts payable person or a payroll service, that's less money for me to give to the family members. And at some point, now that I've had some time away, I'm actually home for an extended period of time, meaning just a few hours at a time. I really, now I'm recognizing I have needed for a long time to set boundaries and to say that, okay, it's not just on, I can't be responsible for the entire family at some point. I need to worry a little bit more about me and my immediate family. And others in the family maybe need to, if they want the extra money, then great, they can come work here and participate more. But otherwise, they might need to start getting ready for a new normal, and I should hire in more help to do some of these jobs that I've been doing and create a little bit more of a balance. But I think that part of what also hits us as family businesses that's different, because everybody had this crisis, no matter what kind of business you are, we all dealt with SBA loans and laying people off and not being able to pay the bills. But what was different is that while I was dealing with that, I was also caretaking for my dad and losing So not only was I worried about my father and my mentor and one of the people in this world that I'm closest to, even when he came out of the hospital, I'm his caretaker. I had to go to his house every day and do the antibiotics, all of this stuff. But I was also having to cover for one of my key employees. So it was another job I was adding while I was emotionally stressed and having to spend extra time caretaking for a family member. So that's unique to family businesses when you have too much overlap in the single roles that somebody plays. And it makes me realize too that I need to not just look at that role for him, but now look at that role for me, because everything I just said about him is true for me. If I walk out the door today and I get hit by that bus, my kids are in trouble. My husband, everyone else has to now. They have to find the operator and the payroll person and the purchaser and the scheduler and, all of those things. I have too many things that I do, and I don't have my estate plan in place. They don't have their people to call, their team. And it makes me, it's given me time to kind of reflect on that and realize it could be any of us at any time. And when you have your business and your family tied so closely together, there's a lot of issues at play and a lot at stake.
So yeah, tremendous. I mean, there's tons there and a lot of places we can go. First, thank you for kind of bearing your soul and walking us through that. We've got some questions. I know Edward and Kathy, I think, have some thoughts. Edward, kind of questions. Absolutely. How does this strike you and your thoughts and questions on the situation?
Well, thank you, Maggie. I just think the overall theme that we've tried to do in this series is about reflection and how will that translate into action. And the first thing, of course, is to focus on the reflection and what have you learned. And I think that last piece, Tom and others can talk about the first part of it, but the last piece really strikes me that you are now the next generation. And you have an 80-year-old father who shows up for work every day. So that helps everyone in the myth that he's really 55, he's not 80, and he's going to be around forever. And then that also gives the myth that you're 22 and you're going to be around forever. And I love the fact that you're saying, look, he's done such a good job in terms of estate planning. What about me? And what do I need to be putting in place? Because we've gone from a leader who does everything to the next gen leader who does everything. And as you said, what saved you here is having Tom in a team. So what is succession about other than going from a leader to a team who will help the leader and or lead? So I love the fact that that's part of your reflection. Very cool.
Absolutely.
Very smart. Kath, is that
we'll see if I act on it.
Oh, yeah, well, yeah, good point. Kathy.
Let's go with the reflection first. You can act in a bit. I'm glad you're
okay.
Give yourself a break.
I think Kathy, you're muted.
Okay. Maggie, thank you.
Yes.
That was as clear a kind of an explanation of this time for business and family as I've heard. But I have a couple questions for you. And you hinted at it. So let me ask you just, what changes will be the most difficult to make in the business and the family? And what will keep you motivated when we're back to a new normal? I mean, you now see starkly some changes you have to make. What will keep you going? And what assistance will you need to keep going? Or maybe none?
Yeah, those are the action ones, right? It's one thing to identify it and something else to figure out what's the reality here. I think that, what I need to do is identify things that I am willing to let go of and find somebody else to do it. And I recognize that this is my issue, not other people's. And it's a combination of my natural inclination with 35 years of training and reinforcement that this is the way it's supposed to be done. And so I think that the family, so in terms of if I were to, let's say, hire some support and tell the family, you're going to be making a little bit less, they would be totally great with that. They really would be. Now I have to actually cross that bridge and be willing to let go and know that, okay, I don't think there's anybody out there who will do it this sounds terrible, but I really do think it's kind of true. There's nobody out there who will do it as passionately or, quite frankly, as well as I will do things.
Uh-huh.
But wow, they'll actually get it done. And maybe that's okay. You know, they'll get it done faster. They'll get it done. And you know what? I'm also a big fan of, if somebody does something wrong, it's okay. Yeah, we just talk about it and learn from it and move on for the next time. I say that, and yet it's really hard for me to do it because I'm so used to being all things to all people all the time. So what's going to keep me motivated? Those are different things, you know. So is it motivated to go back to work? I'm hoping that kind of once, because I have to admit, I'm kind of liking sitting out in my yard right now. It's something I've never done before. But I'm hopeful that when I get back, obviously I'll get motivated to be in it just because you're there and you sort of get wrapped up in the routine. But motivated to hold true to the thoughts I have now, I'm going to have to force myself to do that, I think. I'm going to have to maybe write this down, say, okay, this is on video. This is real now, girl. You can't go back and pretend like you didn't say these things. And really maybe sit down and have that family meeting of, I need this and I need you all to help me stay true to this. Yeah, I'm just kind of thinking out loud here, but maybe I need those family members to say, okay, you know what? No, have you hired this person yet? Or can I come in and help with this?
Right.
And take some of that off.
Right.
So I'm not sure what will keep me motivated other than just life.
Yeah.
And one question. How much are you thinking about a new strategy for the business? I mean, you are a tourist business. Are you thinking right now of opening and how that'll be different? Or does this take you into new areas, new strategies for business opportunities? Do you have any idea about that?
Not really. We'd already started an online store, which has done better during this process. And so I really need to see that as, that is one shift that we should do, is instead of seeing it as just a nice extension of, you know, people who come through and they say, oh, I loved that rosary I got, can I get another? That's really why we started this online presence. But I should start seeing it now as a real arm of the business and put the resources toward it that it deserves. But other than that, really, we are atypical in that, like my product, I don't ever change it. I can have the exact same nativity for 15 years straight. I have a display window I haven't changed in probably 8 years because it works. I have new people every day. I don't need to, you know, change things up for them because they're changing. So I'm not sure what I can do other than the current physical changes for social distancing. We're definitely working on that. What it has done a little bit though is, honestly, it's made me being around there a little. We didn't even enter the building for probably 6 weeks, and other than a maintenance man going by every day to check on it. But I started spending a little bit more time there. And as I was walking through trying to figure out how we're going to do social distancing, it really did make me look at it with fresh eyes, because we are open every single day. This is literally, except for Christmas Day, is the only day of the year we've closed for the last 20 years. So this is, I feel, very strong responsibility to be open for anybody who's in town who wants to see it. We are there every single day. So this is the first time I've been able to walk around without people in there and to kind of start seeing now even just the physical structure through clean, fresh eyes. So there are some physical changes we're talking about making now to go, oh, it's been, 25 years. Those are really ugly paintings on the wall and we haven't even noted, you don't even see it anymore. And so it's forcing me to do that a little bit.
Thank you. Kayla, I'm going to hold some of my thoughts and because there's questions. Okay.
Yes, I have a question that came across. So we have people wondering, so now that you've swerved with COVID, do you have a list for your other family members to contact in the event that you're incapacitated? So now
Yes.
are you, so now is that list extended.
Good point. Good point. And I have not done that. And of course, the big horrible thing would be, because I'm also usually the one that's my dad's caregiver. I'm the one that takes him to the doctor in Albuquerque all the time. So if both of us went together, people are really in trouble because they wouldn't know really who to call. So I was actually thinking about that yesterday. I thought we should really have a notebook. And he has these, but he has them for me, to where I can go, or, what he told me when he was in the hospital one time, he said, just call Pat, our CPA. He said, just have her come over here and she'll know what to look for, which is great. But you're right. My siblings need to have, or my husband or whoever it is needs to know, call Pat. And what's her phone number, and what to do. So I really, I need to, now this has taught me that I need to make that, doesn't even have to be a notebook, a piece of paper that says, in the event of, here's the team, and they'll support you.
Maggie,
And I know they would.
One of the things that I've been thinking is, you're talking about peers, you're talking about outside family members, which I assume are of your generation. With all the
Yes.
reflection you're doing, and the cool news was Maggie's son was in our first family business course at Anderson, and he was amazing. He was amazing. Have you sat down with your children and start talking about your transition, what you're thinking of, the fact that you're really focused on your dad and what happens to him, but what would happen with you? And whether or not anything happens with you, you're really thinking towards the next generation, your kids. Have you had the chance yet to sit down with them and share some of the things you're sharing with us?
Not directly. Now, they have shared with me this whole experience because I'm working from home. They're seeing it. We're talking about it a lot. And especially the older boys, I talk to them a lot about business things and their interest in them, because I am focused on opportunities. So in general, over the last year, we've talked about a variety of opportunities we have coming up, and are they interested? But I'm very careful about that, because when I was younger, my dad was very clear about, this is an opportunity for you. If you want to come work with us, fabulous, but don't ever feel like you have to. And yet I always felt like I had to, because I knew that if I didn't, nobody else would or could or whatever it was. I never really felt like I had that option. So I am honestly a little bit worried about my kids, and that I want them to know exactly that. You have this opportunity. I would love, if you want to do this, it's great. If you're interested in this other segment of the business, fabulous. But I don't want them to feel that pressure of, okay, I need to start putting this on paper, because then it makes it real. It makes them committed. And I think they're a little too young for me to make them feel committed yet.
Sure.
But we should at least start the conversation.
But aware.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they are now the next generation. They're really
Right.
facing the
Exactly.
role you've been in. So the earlier you can start preparing, the better, in whatever way.
Yeah,
Good.
that's true. That's true. And we should at least have those conversations, and again, have that book of, this is who the people are and where things are, and really what the opportunities look like. Because it's one thing to talk about it around the dinner table, and it's something else to sit down and really look at it in paper.
Right.
You're right.
Neat. Okay. Kayla, does this strike home for you, since you're a next generation person as well?
Yeah, it does. I found myself getting pretty emotional just hearing your story, because I've always felt those same responsibilities and that same, and I've always felt like in my family too, I was the responsible kid, right?
Yeah.
They would joke like, okay, mom, my siblings. And so it definitely hits home. And it was actually Dr. Monte had a conversation with my father and I, and his question was great. And I don't even know if he remembers this, but he said, you could have someone in between that runs a business before the kids are ready to run the business. And I'm like, oh, I guess you could do that. You don't even have to, it's just stepping out in a way to reflect and have conversations with people who aren't inside the weeds that can really be helpful sometimes. So yes, it definitely hits home for me.
Wow.
Good.
Cool. Are there other questions here? Yeah, I think you just opened up another piece, Maggie, which is that balance between not wanting to shove your kids into the business and have them feel overly responsible. But in my experience, I really worry about the opposite in a lot of families where they underplay. So we end up with kids in their 20s and nobody's thought about the business, or they've been told you can do anything. And as an outsider, I sit and go, but here's a really cool business. Why wouldn't you get excited about that? Or as you're talking, as Kathy said, how will this change your business going forward? I always find that to be a really wonderful question to your children. This is what we've been doing for the last 20 years. If you had this business, where would you take it? What would you add? You know, would you like to open a hardware store connected to the tourist industry? But how would you remain a family business? You may not want to do this, but some variation or some addition. And I think those conversations are very exciting because I don't think it should be the business or anything else you want to do. Why don't we do what you do within the business, possibly, and not undersell it? You know, because I think the more
That's
you
a great
say, look,
idea.
I was really pushed, I don't want you to feel pushed, I think that's brilliant. Now, are you interested at all, or do you understand there is a responsibility because I could get hit by a truck tomorrow, and this is what's keeping us all afloat. So what do you want to do with it? Including sell it. I mean, you know, whatever they want, but they need to think about something and not feel like you'll handle it. So.
And I love the, what would you do with this business?
Right.
Because it also allows them to use it as a springboard for something else.
Right. Right.
This could exist with a separate manager, but they use it as leverage for something that they are interested in.
Exactly. Exactly.
That's a great idea.
Okay. An international
Maggie,
rosary fund. I don't know.
There you go. I just need to franchise it.
We could just
Everybody has questions. This is awesome. Go ahead, Kathy. And I've got a question after yours.
Okay, Maggie, you talked about having conversations with employees, with your children, and with family members. And you said it with a great deal of grace, that I am finding many people with this time are having trouble having those conversations. And in fact, I've spent a lot of time, and I'll tell a funny story later, about how you get these started and how you keep them on an even keel. But this is the time to do it. Do you have any tips? Because you said it. I talk to my employees, my family members, my kids. Any ideas on just how you keep those things not sensitive, moving forward and open? Because it is a time to really hear what people are thinking and to make plans.
Yeah, I think it's just one of those times that I think in part that the employees, we do have such a core group that we feel very familial in general. And I feel very strongly that, you know, that the family members are doing fine financially. We'll be okay no matter what. They're the ones that are out there every day, day in, day out, and we couldn't do it without them. And I feel very indebted to them most of the time, not just now, but most of the time. So I think it helps that I have a great appreciation for them. And we also have a very small crew. So we work very closely and tightly and for an extended period of time together. So for me, I didn't used to be this way, honestly, but the older I've gotten, the more I feel I just don't have time to dance, you know, to go beat around the bush anymore. I just sort of have to say it and get it out there and trust that they get me and trust that they'll tell me the truth of really what they're feeling, and they need to trust me that I will take that and do something with it, and it's not just lip service from me. And so I think it's just a long history of that, of knowing that, you know, I don't think if anybody were to ever call in sick, it never crosses my mind of, oh, it's Sunday morning, they must have gone out last night. It's just, no, we trust each other and we have a good relationship. And I think it's easier to have hard conversations when you have a history of trust with each other.
Thank you.
And you just have to have them. There's no way around it. So especially things like this.
Yeah.
I think I heard it was something on the radio one time of, I can't remember who it was, but a pod group or something, and they were talking about something that their company had done and the top 10 things that they adhered to. And this guy had said, the number one thing he said is to walk into the spear. And that really resonated with me. The thing you hate the most is the thing you should probably do first. And so I think about that sometimes when I have these, especially with hard conversations or things that we need to get done. It's okay, Maggie, just walk into the sword, get it over with, and then you can go about your day. Sometimes that's where those conversations come from.
Great.
Terrific. Maggie, real quick, Brett has had a couple great questions in the audience, kind of shifting gears a little bit, nuts and bolts about the business and reopening, right? You've talked a little bit about this, but let's talk specifics, because great operator, you talked a little bit about you're not sure when business reopens, right?
Yeah.
So if you're another business owner, how do you kind of look at that? How do you look at overhead going forward, rehiring people, bringing them back? Like, how do you look at all that?
It's horrible. I constantly, that's how I look at it. And with angst, that's how I look at it. I don't know what to do. So some of it is, obviously looking at the governor's orders, but to me, that doesn't really matter that much because I think I'm almost even more conservative than she is because of the nature of my business. You cannot come see us without crowds, generally speaking. So, so the first thing I did is I brought in some key employees. We met at the chapel. We all stood far apart and walked through it. And I said, this is when we're allowed to open. This is what I'm thinking. And I got their suggestions. I got their buy-in because they're the ones I'm asking to be out there interacting with people. So they have to be comfortable with it. So we put up plexiglass wherever we could. I have plenty of hand sanitizer, masks for everyone, little dots on the floor. And I removed probably 8 to 10 pews from the chapel so that there is a lot of room so that when people go in, one, we said, regardless of what the governor says, we will not allow more than 25 people in the chapel at any one time. And, for us, that's, there's often during this time of year, there's 100 people standing in there at any one time. So we would, and 25 might be too much. We'll see what it looks like in there, but we gave them plenty of room to be able to move. Having said that, so now we've done the physical changes. Now it's okay, what do we really do? It's really hard to decide when my employees who love me and whom I love enough to respect what they want to do, they're making more money on unemployment than what I'm going to pay them. And it is really hard for me to ask them to give that up, to come stand there, to have 20 people walk through the chapel all day long. So it is with a lot of angst that now I'm going down there every day and seeing how many people are on the plaza. Is it worth asking them to come in? I'm very straight and narrow about things. So I'm not going to play any kind of game between unemployment and the SBA. We did get the SBA loan, the PPP. But, of course, there's not full guidance on that either. And so there's a little bit of this, I don't know. It sounds like you can give bonuses. So from what I'm reading now, you can do hazard pay or whatnot. So I think when it comes down to when people do come back, now I feel obligated to give them what they would have been getting had they stayed on unemployment, even though they're all willing to come back. They all have said that. But it feels, bad. I've kept their health insurance up we pay 100% of health insurance and dental and all of that. So I've been paying for that this entire time. But then when it comes to actual pay, yeah, it's a hard balance between how do you ask them to come in and do that, and when is it worth opening? Because financially, we're not at the place where I think it's worth opening necessarily, except for the fact that the PPP pays for the payroll. So in that sense, it would be worth it, but they're really loving sitting at home in their gardens too right now. So yeah, I wish I had that magic ball and an answer for Brett. I'm sorry, I don't. We all just are muddling through it together, and I'm going down there every day and just kind of evaluating how many people are downtown. Well, one thing we're doing is instead of everyone coming back, I have 2 key employees that I said, okay, you 2 come back. so that we'll have full hours for you two. It's worth giving up unemployment for. I'll pay you a little bit extra to make up for that. And the others can stay on, so that we're not, I don't want to ruin anybody's access to unemployment to have them come in and work one day.
Yeah,
So we are doing that.
Yeah, I think that's fascinating. Just when you're talking about unemployment, I mean, that whole issue is right on and the big one. What about with the family? Let's circle back there. I assume that you would pay employees first as revenues come back, and then address paying the family later. How are you going to mitigate that? Or are you going to have a family meeting? Or let's talk about kind of best practice in your mind of how is that going to go forward to sort of set expectations with family members and communicate with them and keep them up to speed on everything going on? Because I see that as a real challenge, right?
It is, especially because I'm having to make the decisions for other people that had become pretty dependent on this money. And that's going to be a challenge. You're right. And a lot of it is, I don't know, because until we know what, we've always had a certain amount of income that we could always rely on. I don't care how good or bad the year is. For the last 20 years, we have not been off by more than 6% up or down. So we've all known, it's going to be about here. This year's going to be different. And none of us are going to be able to count on saying, oh, your share of the profits are going to be X. I don't know if there's going to be any this year. In theory, if there's a second wave and they shut us down again, and I think realistically there's going to be a second and a third and a fourth wave until there's a vaccine, of course, it's going to be out there. And we all have to be ready for that. At this stage, the family who was working in one capacity or another, they're all on unemployment. So they can stay on there until we can start, but my focus is to take care of the real employees first. And then the family, I start working on some of that stuff. So they can start hitting the floor after the employees decide, what they want to do. And then, we have to have those conversations of your jobs come last. Mm-hmm. And that's what savings is for. And that's unfortunately the lows of owning a business.
Mm-hmm. Maggie,
in my opinion.
With a number of families I'm working with, those members that don't work in the business, I just had an example of it last week where we held a meeting to talk to them directly. The people running the business did, and I was there to mediate. And I was really impressed with the people working in the business have always had the view, and I'm not saying this in your family, of the people that get profits but don't work in the business are basically all spoiled brats who will expect it. And it was really moving to hear this very large family, who many of whom are living on the income, all said but one, please take care of yourself first and the business. I mean, they were incredibly adult-like. And a few of them said, please teach us and treat us rather as adults. And don't feel like you have to take care of us, but bring us in, let us know what the problems are. We've benefited for years from your hard work and the work of the business. And we'd like to be part of how do we manage this going forward, and being part of that process and not being handled. And I was really touched by that. And it takes a burden off of you and anyone else working in the business that they are across the board in charge of these other children who are not children. They're other adults who often will step up and help by saying, please take care of the employees, please take care of the business, we'll figure it out. And are very grateful for what they've received over the years. But most people don't see them that way. Again, I have no idea if that's what's going on in your family, but for those out there that are feeling that, these people can often be quite generous, as they should be, as adults.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, those
and I think too, what's interesting is I see that I need to trust my employees and have my employees trust me. But as I talk about this, I'm sitting there thinking, okay, I'm scared to talk to my siblings about this and know that, and of course, and to trust that, of course, they would say that. When I told them I was taking them, and no one's getting any money now, they were all amazing and gracious and wonderful.
Right.
But I'm still scared to say, going forward.
But again, that's not them. I said people would see them as spoiled brats, but the other piece of that is it's you over functioning. you assuming you have to take care of them as though you are their mother, as as Kayla said about her sibs, when in fact you're just a sibling. So they're there for you and you're there for them, as you've discovered. And I really trust that in most families, that's the case. And the ones that aren't,
Yeah.
well, we could say something about them, but for the most part, people are very loving and generous.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have
Maggie,
just,
you have
sorry,
a question? Go ahead, Kayla, please. Yeah.
it's more of a comment. I guess it should be
Yeah,
a
please.
but I just left my family business recently, and it was like, well, there's no way they can do all this without me. And guess what? They're fine. And there's this like horrible reality, right, for us personally, but then there's so much joy in that too. And so it just being on the other side of being responsible for everything, there's some freedom in that. And so I just wanted to share, it doesn't necessarily feel good. And I still have people say, I miss you so much and all of that. And that's wonderful, but everything is okay. And so
Yeah, that's a good point.
people are, and adults are adults, and people will figure it out. And there might be a few bumps in the road, but somebody's got to take the sword, right?
Yeah, exactly. And you're right. Usually people will step up and you have to let them.
Yeah.
As I say that, but I don't do it.
Well,
Another
but you have to let them know you need something, Maggie.
Yeah,
I think the person who's
exactly.
in the only adult in the room role, people begin to treat you like a parent, and children are not to say to a parent when they're 5, do you need anything? They just don't think of it. So here you are, an adult, saying, I can handle everything. And the curse is, you can, but that doesn't mean you should. And they'll be really happy if you turn to them and say, I need your help by understanding X or doing Y. And you'll find, as you did, that they'll step up. It's quite amazing. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think you're right. And some of it was me just having to recognize that I needed that, I've played this role my entire life. And it's just, this has given me that time to kind of recognize that maybe that's not the role I should be playing.
Right. The trick will be not to go back to it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's really hard. Okay.
Yeah. Which is why I should have the conversation sooner rather than later so they can keep me strong.
Exactly.
Maggie, question on planning, because you mentioned this and you and your dad have done a ton of planning. You even said, despite all the planning you did, this was a really tough situation, of course, given no one could see it coming. What advice do you give to a family business owner at this point who maybe doesn't know where to start with planning, hasn't done anything? What do you do? How do you look at that? Because you all have done an amazing job planning. Where do you start with that, do you think?
I really think if you have one of that team, for me, I see the core members of that team being kind of the estate attorney, the financial advisor, and the CPA. Now, you might have different ones in the different generations, but you need to have whoever's in control of the assets. In my opinion, that's the team that matters the most, because that's who you're going to have to go to relate to get information. So if you have one of those members of the team in place, then you can go to them to say, who do you work with? So if you love your CPA and they know how your business operates, what's a great estate attorney that you work with? Because they probably already do work with them. And then, because we really, I would say it was really our estate attorney and our CPA who we had probably 20 meetings over a period of 5 years to get everything in place. And then we would review it occasionally. We have not reviewed it recently. And that led to some of my angst over this last couple of months. It was like, okay, I think this is the way it works, but we haven't just sat down and talked about it recently, which you do need to do. But I would really start with, if you even just have one member of that team that you really like, have them recommend the next one maybe. Because you want people who can talk together. And I really do like that I can call you, for instance, and I know that you've already talked to the CPA. And in fact, you often bring that to me. You'll say, okay, I just had a meeting with, your CPA, and this is what we think we notice that you haven't done this or whatever it is. And so finding a team that's proactive for you is fabulous. And the estate attorney, they're really critical at the beginning and at the end, but not so much in the middle. Like I haven't talked to one in a while. And I think part of that though is what Dr. Monte was saying, that's a little generational. He was my dad's attorney and now we're at the place, he's his age and I need someone who's mine now to start developing a relationship with that next generation of estate attorney. But that's hard because while my dad's still alive, I have to find someone that he's comfortable with also.
Yep. Kathy, I know you had a comment. We're going to wrap this up soon. We probably could go all day, but talk to us. Yeah.
Well, first, thank you so much, Maggie. And I just want to give you a funny line. I was doing a meeting 2 days ago with a family who was trying to wrestle with business and family, and they were getting worried and anxious. And one of the young men in the next generation said this after they were so worried. He said to me and to his family, even blind squirrels can find nuts. And something that pithy set the whole meeting at ease with how to go forward and plan, meaning that we're worried now, but we've gotten out of tight binds before. We can do this. And I think for the elders in the group, those people operating at full steam, to hear that from that he had observed they had gotten through it, other things. So I think that sense of optimism comes through in your presentation. Thank you a lot.
Absolutely. Thank you. And I think you're absolutely right about that. And that's what everyone needs to know. You taught me well. It's good. I got this. I still need you, but but we're good. And of course, we'll all get through this in one phase or another. And that's part of my thing is I feel like we are so blessed. We're in such a lucky situation compared to so many families who are literally not, they put everything on the line to start the little shop or the restaurant and can't make their lease payments right now. And I hope that they too, they're the type of people that even if they did it once, even if this one doesn't work out because things have gotten so bad and so weird right now, this is exceptional and they are exceptional people and they can do it again, just maybe in a different way.
Thank you.
That's hard.
Yeah, Maggie, I want to thank you. We're going to talk a little bit about the summer dinner, but I want to thank you for your time here. Also, I think your authenticity and candor. I think it's hard to come bare your soul, right? Whether it's on Zoom or in front of people you don't know. This is really helpful because I think you gave some advice and some insight and just gave it to us in a way that everyone can digest and relate to. That's hard to do. And thank you kind of emotionally for putting yourself out there, because not a lot of people would do it. And I think especially in this time where it's hard to be vulnerable, where we're all nervous and scared and all these things are going on, I think that's really an exceptional job today. So thank you for bearing your soul and letting us have a chance to talk to you. I want to turn over to Kayla and Edward just to talk about the transition to the summer dinner and where we're going from here. Is that fair, Kayla?
Yeah. Can I do one call to action? So when we are open, let's all go to Loretto Chapel and check.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Let's do some local support of family business.
Nice, Kayla.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. All right. So so we have coming pretty soon, June 25th. I know time is weird right now, so we want to get a save the date out there. That's a Thursday. And I believe it's 6 p.m. and we're going to be sending out an invite, but Dr. Monte is going to be joining us for a virtual summer program about succession and the myth of family business. So just real brief, Dr. Monte, what does that mean? Tell us real quick. Just real quick.
If I tell you now, nobody will come to the summer dinner. So no, I'm not saying a word. No, the idea is that the majority of people like Kathy and I are called into family businesses to talk about succession. And that becomes very narrowly defined as moving the power from the upper generation to the lower generation. And it is often just a nightmare of a transition, particularly when men run the succession plan. I have a different view of it, which is I think it does go at the very definition of what is a family business. So that's what I want to explore. And we had talked about the next series. Kayla, and I don't know if you want to talk about that, because one thing that we would really like to accomplish with the summer dinner and the symposium this year, and the end of this part of the series, is to have continuity. So that we've talked, thank you, Maggie, for your contribution, and really talking about the next generation. The next series, I'll let Kayla describe that, and then we'll move into the summer dinner, and then from the summer dinner, more of the series, but ending, going towards Kathy Wiseman talking in the symposium in a way that will sort of put a cap on the next generation discussion, so that we really do have time to think about succession, next generation, where our businesses are going, as we continue to come back to the series theme of reflection.
Yes.
So we're all sitting around trying to think about what's going on. And I love that, because I think that is the health of any family business.
Thank you so much. And we're really looking forward to anytime I've heard Dr. Monte speak. He has all these, I think I told Tom this the other day, he has mic drops, he just has these gold comments that everybody remembers. And so I'm really looking.
Thank God the summer dinner is only 20 minutes long. So
oh, no, it's
not a problem. Not a problem.
Mic drop. There we go.
There we go.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So we do have one more webinar in our Vision 2020 series, and that's going to be on June 11th. And I am going to be presenting with some other New Mexico Next Generation guests. Jocelyn Gorman committed to me just a few minutes ago that she will be able to join. So we're really excited. And then I'll invite some others to join us as well. I'm going to be talking about a wealth paradigm shift as well for the next generation. I think that it's going to be really fun to share that with you all. So anything else, Tom?
No, I think it's been great. Again, thank you for all your hard work in this, and the board's support and all the hard work that has gone into this. Edward and Kathy, want to thank you. You put a ton of time into this and really have helped bring, I think, premier content to this series. So thank you for all your dedication to this. And Maggie, once again, not easy to do. We kind of asked you about this a few weeks ago, and you stepped up. Really a good job, and it was fun to have the chance to go back and forth with you for a virtual lunch. That was cool. Really fun.
Thank you. It's good to see you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Very nice work,
And
Maggie.
the good thing is, Maggie, is that this is now recorded, and we will be.
Oh.
Keep me strong.
So anybody who wants to see it, it's recorded, and that link will be shared with you all. So thank you so much for spending some time with us. I know time is precious, and we're really grateful for each of you taking the time. Have a good one.
Bye.
Yay. Maggie, is Maggie gone?
Yeah, hold on.